Okay, welcome folks. We've got another episode of the Isleman Sport podcast, and this one's a bit of a special one really. They're all special, but this one in particular, we have probably got three of the key influential people who've shaped the lives of many sportsmen and women on the island over a long period of time. You could probably call them the holy trinity of PE teaching. We've got Neil MacGregor, Guy Smith, and we've got Cliff Dunn. So we're really chuffed to bits to get these guys in today. Welcome, guys. How are we all doing?
Good.
All good.
Excellent. And just to add, the reason, one of the main reasons we've got you guys in today, previous guests we've had on numerous podcasts have mentioned you all personally as key influences on them getting into sport, staying in sport, working in sport, or going on to high performance sport as well. And it was just amazing to hear some of the stories that they were telling. Just to throw some in there, we have Phil Kringle, who's been playing rugby for London Scottish, who went out to play in Carcassonne as well in France, and he didn't have enough positive things to say. He was so buzzing with the support that he got from you guys as a team. We've had Joe Reid, we've had Jack Walton as well. Some people from different eras as well, going back over the past several decades. So
steady on there.
So obviously, give us a bit of background. How did you guys get into PE? I mean, did you all come through similar paths, or were they a bit different?
Well, Neil and I met at college. We met in a small hall of residence. I think there was only 6 new entries to Loughborough colleges, and we were both in that unit. So that's where we met. And then we did our Loughborough. We went our separate ways. Neil came to the island. I went off to Wootton Bassett. I taught, and then I taught abroad, and then I taught at Frome. And by this time, I was looking to get head of department. And as is our wont, I thought, when I got an interview for the head of department at Castle Rushen, I thought, I'll surprise Neil. I'll go and knock on his door. So I came over for the interview. Hadn't told him anything about it, obviously. Knocked on his door, and he goes, "Smithy, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I've come over for an interview at Castle Rushen." He said, "So have I." I was fortunate enough to get the job, and then
never forgiven him.
And then Neil came to join me. So that's where it started, at Castle Rushen.
I was at Ballacameen at the time and was very happy there, but when Guy got the job at Castle Rushen, I actually took a pay cut to go and work with him at Castle Rushen. Don't want to sound sycophantic, but I knew how good he'd be as a head of department and a PE teacher. He was an outstanding sportsman himself, but I also knew that he was an even better teacher than he was a sportsman.
Fantastic.
So when the opportunity came to work at Castle Rushen, I actually took a pay cut and was very happy to do it.
That's quite the compliment, that guy. Someone's willing to take a pay cut for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were both on the same wavelength. That was the key thing. Mm-hmm. We both wanted the best from the kids that we taught, and I think the success came from our philosophy, which was to get as many kids involved as possible. Every kid was important, and make the most of all abilities. In sport, it's not just about the best. Certainly at school, it's far from it. It's about getting as many youngsters involved as possible, and I think that's where the success stemmed from. We had numerous instances of youngsters who play in our E team, F team in the first year. By the time they get to the sixth form, they're playing first team. It's what they make of themselves, and getting them enjoying playing sport.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. I mean, the broader you make that base of your pyramid, the top looks after itself, doesn't it? Yeah. No, so how about you, Cliff? What sort of...
Well, Neil was my PE teacher at Ballacameen, which is just to make him feel a little bit older again. And I come into it a little bit different. I got a job. I had different situations at home. I was involved with a lot of football coaching, and youth work. And then my wife, she is a PE teacher as well. She encouraged me to go back to night school and get the qualifications I need. And then I went back to John Moore's, and then I was working with an ex-England captain, Mike Slemon, who'd offered me a job. The job came up here after me teaching practice. I came back, and I was lucky enough to get the job back at Castle Rushen. Didn't know Guy a lot, and I knew Neil. It took me about 3 years to stop calling them sir because of the respect I had for him. But again, same philosophy in that I wanted to get the best out of the kids, and I think that was one of the strengths of us as a department, that we all said and did the same thing, so the consistency was there for the kids going along, and they knew that we really, it wasn't just words with us, it was actions as well.
Yeah.
So that was important.
So how long were you guys all sort of working together?
10 years.
Maybe more. You two were 10 and then I came in. We did about 15 together then. Well, Neil left a little bit earlier, but you were there together before then. Overall, probably if you look back, I look at the athletics trophies, and I think we won some of the trophies for about 15 to 20
Don't
years now.
say that to Trevor.
Oh yeah, there's a story there.
Yeah.
I remember that well.
It was kind of, if you look at that, probably 15 to 20 years together. But Chris has taken over. We had Sue Messenger at the time as well with the girls, but Chris Caldwell's taken over, and he's doing a really good job down there as well.
Excellent. No, so quite a different route in for you as well.
Definitely.
Not the sort of traditional route through school and university.
No.
From there. Excellent. And how did you find that? Did you feel coming through that route? Did it give you anything different that you could bring to
Definitely.
the
When I
role?
went to work with the older students, I wouldn't say it was like in the working world. I could talk to them and advise them, because as a PE teacher, yeah, you're teaching sport, but you're developing the all-round person as well.
Yeah.
And these guys will tell you that we've made friends from it, but we've also helped direct people in the right direction.
Yeah.
And maybe getting people away from some things that they didn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want to get them in. So as a teacher, you're not just developing sport, you're developing your all-round person, and that was a big thing that we still enjoy today.
Yeah.
If I go out down south with me missus, I rarely speak to it, because you've just got so many people. It's the same for these fellas when you go out, coming up and telling your stories and so on. So, yeah.
It must be really nice. I mean, it was really nice for me to hear. I mean, Jack Walton in particular, the story he was telling in the podcast was all around the amount of opportunity that you had to take part in sport at Castle Rushen was unrivalled. You know, lunchtimes, after school, there was always something you could do. I think he was saying the gym was always open, so you could go and shoot a basketball into a hoop and whatever. And I mean, I witnessed it with my own eyes, because Cliff, I think you invited me down to do some throwing one summer, and I was blown away by the number of activities that were going on in lunchtime. You know, we were over in the discus cage, there was another teacher over there in the long jump pit, there was someone else taking hurdles somewhere else, and it was just this absolute hubbub of activity. It was amazing. I was totally blown away by it. I mean, clearly it's not come about by accident, has it? This has been I suppose it's a bit of a design about how you guys
Can I just
want
say,
to approach it.
I know all three of us are very keen that this podcast doesn't come across as us saying how great we were.
Yeah.
But if we did have any success, and I think we'd all agree that the way we measured that was in terms of the number of pupils that would come to practices. You could turn up at Castle Rushen at a lunchtime, and there wouldn't be, and they're quite big playing fields, there wouldn't be a blade of grass that wasn't in use, which is how you just described it now. That's what we got our satisfaction from, seeing the huge numbers coming along to practices. Mm-hmm. And now when you go along there, it's grown again.
Yeah.
Chris has got 70 or 80 boys turning up to Year 7 rugby.
That's fantastic.
The numbers is what I think gave us a huge amount of satisfaction.
I think the secret was when they came in Year 7, you bought into Castle Rushen sport. You didn't come in and say, I'm a rugby player, I'm a footballer, I'm this. You bought in, and they quickly understood that whatever they wanted to do, they would be able to do. Basketball, football, rugby, Sue and the other female staff offering the netball and their hockey. But there was lots of practice. We encouraged them to go with clubs. We had a great link with the hockey club down south and with Southern Nomads, and the kids got a lot out of it. And once they know you're passionate about it, you've got some knowledge about it, and you're encouraging, and you want to see them all improve, then they buy in. Yeah. And in the first couple of weeks, we would go into the dining room and we'd grab kids and say, practice is on. You said you're gonna play. Mm-hmm. You come to practice, and then probably one of the most enjoyable things is when you sit 2 or 3 months in, and you see in the year 7s who've come from all these different schools and all sat together, and they're a team. They're bonded.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. We were a team.
Well, that's it. I mean, you're impacting on people's lives as teachers. You're helping them set up those social connections, aren't you, at an early age, which help them into adulthood, And
a lot of them have gone into businesses together and worked together, and they're now, well, Neil and even some of the kids I've taught now, their kids are playing rugby together, and Nomads is like a big family down there when you see them down there.
You definitely see that with the clubs that have that strong links with the local clubs and the schools. It makes such a difference, doesn't it, to the experience that they have. And I think is it Casey who's been quite a strong link, hasn't it, at Castle Rushen between Southern Nomads as well. So it's great to have that keen interest, transfer over to the club environment. So I was chatting with Chris downstairs before, and I was thinking, what can we ask these gentlemen coming in today? And Chris helped come up with some questions as well. He said, what would you have done differently, if at all, if anything? If you had your time over again, what would you have done differently?
You've got dead air here. Come on.
Individually, I'd have probably got into my psychology a little bit earlier than what I have done, because that's become bigger and bigger in the sport, and that's why I enjoyed most doing over the last couple of years, improving the way I maybe speak to kids and challenge kids, and they are changing. That's one thing that I've noticed over the years. You can't stand still. I mean, I'm still teaching now, and I've gone back from teaching 18-year-olds to teaching 4-year-olds to teach from 4 right through to 11 now, and is moving with the kids. And I think maybe being a little bit more flexible when I first started might have helped me. And there was a basketball final where I should have changed my tactics and I got it wrong on costume, but little things like that stick with you. Apart from that,
I think over time as a teacher and when you're working in different schools, you understand the environment and you develop that environment. So there were things that I was doing towards the end of my career that I wasn't doing at the start, that certainly I would have wanted to implement much sooner. Things like target setting. We were very big on target setting, so that every child had something to aim for, whether they were the strongest in the class at something or the weaker in the class. They always had something to try and improve on. We're doing things like cross country, which is not the most popular activity, but you time them and then say next week, right, you've got to try and beat your time. It's not about you've got to win the race. It's personal development, and the athletics was always a good one. We used to have a big chart where we'd have all the events, and we'd get them to put up their we'd record scores from lessons and at lunchtime and encourage them to put their scores up, and then they've immediately got a target. Right, that's what I've got to try and improve myself. Not I'm competing against Joe Bloggs down here. I've got to try and improve myself. So I certainly would have brought that in sooner.
Right, excellent. No.
And perhaps for me, just to have taken a little bit of a breather sometimes, to take some time to develop my technical knowledge at some of the sports. We were so busy, every lunchtime, after school, weekends, that probably got pushed back in my case. And I did feel that probably that was an area that I could have been a lot stronger in.
Yeah, I know one of my friends. He taught at a public school, and they used to every 7 or 8 years they'd take a term out. You know, they would get that sabbatical time, and I always used to think that would have been such a good idea, because you know it's nice to go away from a situation and look at it from the perspective of, you know, somebody who is analysing what's going on, rather than being in the middle of it constantly. Because like when the day starts, you know, you get there at 8 o'clock and it's bang, you know, the foot's on the pedal. You know, we talked about, you know, we do the basketball shooting and, you know, bowling at break time. Well, when your second lesson finishes, bang, you're straight into that. You don't get a breather, and then you're straight into your lunchtime. You get 10 minutes for lunch, and then you've got your afternoon lessons, and often
then you're
you've
into
got
fixtures,
or clubs after school. You know, at the end of a day, you're just happy to get home and chill out for a second.
Can I just add something there, which Guy probably won't mention, but when A-level PE became a thing, Guy went and asked if we could start teaching A-level PE, and was told no, there was no room on the curriculum for an extra subject. He then said, well, okay, I'll come in at 8 o'clock every morning and I'll teach my A-level PE between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock.
Crikey.
And that's how A-level PE started at school. So on top of everything else, you know,
it was that sort of thing that the kids bought into, because we used to go in and do clubs before school. Like I remember senior football, they were all too busy at night, so they'd come in at 7:30 and do an hour. Or kids would come in, we'd open up the weight training area, they'd be upstairs doing weights. And like every minute of the day that we could use to help the kids, we'd use it.
I always used to come up with the same speech we used to have a sports review at the end of the year where we'd review what was going on. And I always used to say, and you know, I was genuine, say, you know, what we did at Castle Rushen was a product of the amount of time and effort the staff were putting in, but also the amount of time and effort the kids were putting in, and the support we got from parents and other teachers within the school. And it's that community effort, you know, and I always think that, you know, if you put the time and effort in, the kids will respect that, and that will encourage them to put the time and effort in. And when you see the amount of time and effort the kids put in, it encourages you to put that. So it's almost like a little snowball effect.
Definitely, it's like the old saying, isn't it? You know, young people, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's clear to me. You guys care one hell of a lot about each individual that comes through the doors into your lessons.
My favourite day of the year is still the Old Scholars, where every year we have, Neil started it, I think, back in the 90s, somewhere there, where basically play a day where the Old Scholars come back in, and then they go down the pub and have a few beers, and every year there's 30-40 kids there playing, and it's because they enjoyed the school, they come back to see their mates, and then they all go down the pub, and then a load more that can't get off work come back. But it just shows the relationship they had with us and with the school, and how much it's still important to go back and remember that.
That's fantastic that tradition carries on as well, isn't it? You know, you've got the people who are that keen to come back and sort of pay homage to what's gone before and the experiences they were lucky enough to have. That's amazing. Oh my God. Technically, maybe I could qualify for that Old Scholars match, because I think I put a Castle Rushen shirt on once myself for a rugby match, Neil, if you remember.
Playing for the island?
Well, because Balcomine back at the time struck rugby off, didn't they? And I was playing for Douglas' second team as a senior, and I wasn't accessing schools rugby at the time. I think Tony Heggs had a word on you and said that I was playing, and the only way for you to sort of come and see whether I was worth getting in the Island team was for me to put on a Castle Rushen shirt. I think we played Kirby Lonsdale down at King William's College on a tour, and it was quite it was good
fun. You must have made an impression, because I remember you playing for the Island team, Trev. So the invitation's there for next year's Old Scholars match.
I'm not sure my body would take it. Excellent. So, I mean, gents, are there any sort of key things that stick out in your mind that really success stories that you've seen along the way of people?
One of my success stories was when we went up to Ramsey and we played our development team, which meant that every pupil in the school, in that year, went up and played a fixture against Ramsey, and to me that was one of the best afternoons I can remember in sport, because you had youngsters who have never played a sporting fixture in their lives, and to be honest, some of them might never have played again, but it gave them that opportunity and encapsulated what sport should always be about, is pitching it at your level.
Yeah.
And I always think if you are playing against someone who is the same standard as you can enjoy your sport. I do remember when I went to Castle Rush and a hearing of sort of Russian United playing a game where they won 30-odd-0. Now, to me, that's not sport. That doesn't help anyone. It doesn't encourage people to participate. But getting to your level, playing against other people at your level, everyone has the opportunity to enjoy their sport, and that was a highlight of my time at Castle Rush.
That's impressive. I mean, because let's face it, there's young people out there who would run a mile to not do sport. It's not their thing, and to see them have that opportunity to go out there and do something, especially a game like rugby as well. And was it rugby?
No, it's football.
Football.
It was football.
Physical games. That's fantastic. That's a real achievement, that, and I'll be amazed to see if there's another school out there who managed to get every single child in a cohort to do that.
Ramsey, because we were playing against them.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We worked hard with the kids, though, and like hearing you say kids wouldn't run a mile. Every kid at Castle Rushen could run a mile. Because when they come in, there was two reasons why you couldn't. You were unfit or you were lazy, and we were going to push you to make sure you could run a mile. And one of the things I really enjoy, we went on rugby trips to South Africa, we went on trips to England, we went to Twickenham in my first year. I thought, what's going on here? We got to Twickenham twice within 3 years. But I really
twice in 2 years, and then they stopped us entering after that.
Yeah, I still enjoy today looking at like the Nomads team sheet, or reading the paper and seeing kids that weren't sporty at school who've gone back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, you've maybe helped them with the foundation.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that they're back in or helping out a club, or like Jack, seeing what he's done. Phil, I always remember Phil Kringle coming in year 7 saying, I'm going to be a rugby player. And we were always honest with the kids. That's another thing that was really important. I said, well, you're going to have to get fit. And he finished 3rd from last in year 7. And when he left in the cross country. And I said, there you go, you're going to have to get fit. And he worked and worked and worked, and when he left to go across to Hutton, Kirkham, he finished in the top kind of 5 or 6 that year, and that's how much he had done during the year.
Yeah.
But we had George Blackwell was another one. He'd be out at lunchtime, work. So they're the things I enjoy, seeing the kids maybe who weren't the sportsmen at school, but they've left and they've gone back into it.
Yeah. When you look at it, it's life skills, isn't it? Hard work and determination. It's things that'll take you anywhere in any scope of life.
Well, the way the world's going today with the mental health thing, I think it's more and more important that kids are involved in stuff they enjoy.
But I mean, you're talking about life skills. The other thing that we emphasised was that you play hard and you play fair and you respect your opposition. We'd always make the kids go and sort of thank referees and make sure that they gave 3 cheers at the end of the game and things like that, win or lose. And to me, that's an important thing to do in sport. Is you've got to respect your opponents because they're trying just as hard as you are.
That we still see the effect of that now. I mean, Neil, you went on to teach at Buchan. didn't you, after your time at Castle Rushen?
I did. I took the 5-yard walk across the road.
And those values you mentioned there, Guy, about 3 cheers, shaking hands with your opposition, that really stuck out when you turn up with your booking students and they were playing in the tournaments that MSR would put on, and every time you'd notice they would always come up and they would, if I was refereeing a game, they would always come up and shake my hand as a referee and thank me.
That's nice to hear, Trav, but the one thing, which going back to the 3 cheers, it's very easier to give 3 loud cheers when you've won.
Yeah.
But it's usually the losing team is like, and you can hardly hear it. So that was one thing that I did insist on. Those 3 cheers at the end are just as loud and just as enthusiastic if you've lost as if you've won.
Oh, fantastic! It's it blows me away, and I think all my colleagues noticed that as well, and they always comment on it about that respect, your opposition, your respecting your officials, and all those sort of things that help you make good connections with people, and
just nice life skills, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And important when you go to get jobs and stuff, everything else, they all fit into that. And I think we put a lot of the foundations in there, helping kids become good people, good adults and good parents these days.
So obviously we haven't got any of the ladies here today because unfortunately we weren't able to get someone to come along for various reasons. But what memories can you share about the ladies' PE department? Because they've obviously done some fantastic things as well at Castle Rushen as part of your team.
Again, we didn't want this to come across as us being, how great we were, because the girls were just on the same wavelength as well. And Guy's already said that was a key thing, that we were all on the same wavelength. We were all prepared to put the time in. We all expected the same standards in terms of discipline, behaviour, effort, commitment, and so it didn't matter whose lesson you went to, all the standards were exactly the same. And the girls had huge success, huge numbers turning up to practices, and very, very successful in terms of inter-school sport.
They were lucky as well. Sue come over and she's with a number of other staff. The girl I work with now, Lynn Eilert, her mum, they pushed, I know there's a load of them pushed the netball. They had a real passion for netball, and Sue was very passionate about her netball, and she pushed that, and she along with the others helped the development in netball. And I'm up there seeing my daughter playing, I see how many kids are playing netball now every Sunday. It's very, very impressive. But again, it goes back to the passion that the female staff had in the department to push the kids in school and make sure they were playing out of school as well. And a lot of them kids now are parents or coaches. They're byproducts of what Sue brought and to kind of the sport when they were young. Similar with Neil with his rugby, the early days pushing junior rugby. They kind of done a lot for it.
I mean, you guys must also you must work with a lot of people from other schools as well, and have links with schools across the island. Are there any sort of stories you've got around working with island squads and things like that, and working collaboratively with other teachers?
I mean, the island school teams are shared out. Staff giving their own time up to go away. Neil did the rugby trip for years, and Guy, you were involved a lot with the California trip.
Yeah, I did. I was involved with basketball, cross country, athletics. I think it becomes a team thing for the Isle of Man. Everybody's got to contribute. If you're going to get the sort of give the students from the Isle of Man the opportunity to get to that next level. So now we're talking more elite performance, giving them an opportunity to go and compete in Merseyside championships, or taking them on a tour to play against teams that are, have good reputations for their sport. They need to do that. We need to do that, and it is a problem living on the Isle of Man. It's probably easier for individuals, which is why we get the success of the cyclists, Cav and Johnny Bellis, Peter Kenya. When you got the athletes, you got sort of Joe Reed and Catherine and
Martin Aaron was one we had,
and of course Keith Gerrard. But team, it's very difficult for somebody to achieve success in a team sport if they are not playing at their level. It goes back to finding your level. They've got to play week in, week out, and without being derogatory about sport on the Isle of Man, you're going to get outstanding players in teams playing with people who are probably a few leagues below them, and that can give them extra bit of time, extra bit of space, and so on, that you don't want the elite players to have, because they've got to learn to handle that sort of pressure. So I think it was always important for us to try and get trips going across, so that they had some opportunity to develop their the elite performers. But you get the likes of Phil. He knew that if he wanted to make the most of his sport, he had to leave Castle Rushen. And obviously it was the best move he made, because he went to Kirkham and was outstanding player. I think he was captain in his final year, wasn't he? And then went on to play for Scotland. And he wouldn't have done that if he was on the island, unfortunately.
No, you need to be in that environment, don't you, with team sports where you're playing against other teams at a certain level to help you bring up your standard, aren't you, for sure? And it's hard to do that in a smaller talent pool.
Even harder now with the COVID thing. I mean, we used to play in the Daily Mail. That would be trips away. We'd have trip clubs coming over to play King Bales, who'd come and play island teams or school teams, and that's all been put on hold at the minute. So, but at least we are still playing sport, whereas a lot of schools and some clubs across aren't. It'll be quite interesting to see when we go back where we fit in. So I know there'll be a lot of people wanting to get away to play.
Oh, for sure. I think we might well be at a slight advantage, because we've been able to continue playing.
Absolutely.
On the Isle of Man, whereas a lot of people in the UK have, unfortunately, bless them, have not been able to do anything at all.
No, definitely.
For sure. So, and we mentioned about getting away for team events. I think we probably mentioned Patrice Bell, who's at the minute.
He was on a England under-18s training camp last weekend.
So I believe, and he's just recently transitioned from Castle Rushen on to Kirkham, similar to Phil Kringle.
Bevan Rod, he scored at the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah.
Another lad, young Manx. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing Manx kids from whatever school do well. I think we all agree on that, and Bevan's doing really well away, isn't he? At the minute, you're quite friendly with his parents.
Yeah, Bevan's doing outstandingly at the moment. He started for Sale Sharks against Exeter, the European champions, on Friday night, and they beat Exeter, and Bevan got his first try.
Amazing.
So he's flying at the moment.
There's nothing better than that feeling when you get your first try for any club. It's pretty special, isn't it? Come on, Neil, you've had Player of the Year for Douglas. You must have scored a try to get that.
Any tries, in fact, when I speak to Bevan next, I'm going to tell him how ashamed I am. Letting down the front row union, scoring tries.
Well, I'm sure you set plenty of them up, Neil. Okay. So we'll start drawing things up to a close there, gents. But before we finish, I suppose, any closing thoughts from yourselves at all?
Well, I'll say something for your line now, that in my time at Castle Rushen, I saw it was before Manx Sport and Recreation, and we saw a significant change over the years when Manx Sport and Recreation kicked in. We saw facilities, we saw the opportunity for youngsters to participate at a lower level, and that had a knock-on effect for us, because things like, say, cricket, I always remember we were, with most of the kids, starting from scratch, teaching them to bowl with a straight arm and things like this some of the times. But that's just an example of the impact that Manx Sport and Recreation has had, and long may it continue.
Well, thank you very much, Guy. I mean, I think the MSR sort of motto is more people, more active, more often, which sounds very similar to the philosophy that you guys have had at Castle Rushen. So I think that approach just provides far more opportunities for people, doesn't it? And the chance to try sports you wouldn't normally try. I mean, I never played cricket. I never even played cricket at secondary school. I think we just did did athletics mostly, and if you wanted to play cricket, it was the extracurricular.
I always say anyone who says Neil a man, parent says there's nothing for the kid to do, they're not looking in the right places.
Absolutely.
And you know, I know Greg with the cricket, Chris with the rugby, and that, like these guys are saying, the opportunities are out there. The thing I'd like to see in the future is maybe there's so many sports on offer outside school, maybe they're tied in a little bit better to what sports the kids do in school. So there's every sport the kids do in school, they can transfer into, follow the pathway and get involved in the community. Because at the end of the day, at school, I always seen that our job was to kind of create a love of the sport and then point them in the right direction and let them enjoy the next 40, 50 years in the sport.
Yeah.
There's some sports that are really taken off around Great Britain. Maybe we could do a little bit more in school to help push those sports and let the kids participate in them sports. Because of the sports that, you know, girls football is one of the ones that I can think of that's really taken off across, and it could do with a little bit of a push. But the opportunities are there for everyone to play at a lot of levels and challenge themselves. I mean, we're in here in the Sports Institute. This was never here when you were, you know, weight training, circuit training, all the power training. It's there, the help's there to get kids as far as they can.
No, it's changes, doesn't it? Everything, like you said earlier in the recording, you know, sport doesn't stand still, does it? You know,
No.
It's always moving forward. And I think that continuous improvement, it's a feature in schools, it's a feature in Alman Sport, it's a feature in Max Sport and Recreation. I think if we can always look to how we can do things better, then we're going to be on a good trajectory. And no matter what point we are in, that will always be the case, won't it? You know, even 50 years time, we'll be looking back at, well, what have we learned, and you know, over the last 50 years to get where we are now. So, no, it's a really good point, that, Cliff. One last thing I wanted to ask was, what piece of advice would you give someone, a young person who was considering going into work as a PE teacher?
I would say I've seen too many one sport wonders, where if you're going to be a PE teacher, you need to be able to teach 3 or 4 sports well. If you're going to do the right thing for them students. I mean, I was lucky. I played basketball with Graham Bassett as a kid. I had rugby at school with Neil. Richard Hodgson took me under his wing with coaching, and Sam Kenny were playing. But I picked up bits. So trying to experience as many sports, and I've got a number of people I'm working with even now wanting to become PE teachers. I say to them, do as many coaching courses as you can. Look at coaches, take the good bits, take the bad bits, but be a magpie and remember them, write them down. I forget as I get older, but make sure you learn as much as you can so you can pass it on when you get in there.
Good words.
I just say, do you enjoy sport? If you enjoy sport, that's the best basis. It's not just a matter of do you enjoy football or do you enjoy rugby. Do you enjoy sport, and do you want to pass this on, your love of sport, on to youngsters? Go for it if that's the case.
And realise the commitment that's needed. It's not just a 9 to 3:30 job. If you really want to get the best out of the kids,
but we know that in sport. In sport, that's the case. If you want to make the most of it, you've got to put the time in. It's almost taken for granted, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
And it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. My mum tells me, I don't remember this, that at the age of 7, I told her I wanted to be a PE teacher. I know that certainly from the age of 11, that's all I wanted to do. I don't remember it at 7, but she said, no, I vividly remember. And I can't think there are many people at the age of 7 who would be so focused that that's all they ever wanted to do, and I never deviated. So if you half a mind to go for it, do it. It's a great job. You'll have so many great moments to look back on when it's all finished. And if you're enthusiastic, that can take you a long way.
Definitely.
Gents, that's a brilliant place to close that up. I really appreciate you guys coming in today, and it was fantastic to hear all the stories about your time through various schools and through Castle Rushen. and a massive thank you. Really appreciate that.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
inviting us.
Keep doing the great job you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you, and yeah, to listeners, I'm not sure who our next podcast guests are going to be, but stay tuned. Check out the Ironman Sport Coach Network on Facebook. We've got lots of updates and information there for lots of courses that might be coming up. Lots of articles and podcasts and other resources are shared upon there as well. There's lots of little coaching gems, and also if you're listening, coming up in a few weeks we've got a webinar series as well that's been running now since last November. We've got a series of 10 coaching webinars taking place. We've just had Amy Price, who's from football, looking at how we can use video game design to influence our coaching practice, and it was fantastic. And using the principles around how a video game is designed to get people motivated and learning, it was unreal. Next up, we've got a guy called Stuart Armstrong, who you may or may not have heard of. Stuart is behind the Talent Equation podcast and is the head of coaching at Sport England as well. So I think Stuart's going to be taking place on a week on Friday. Yeah, a week on Friday. So really looking forward to that. It's going to be 6 p.m. a week on Friday. So check out the Coach Network, and you can get all that information on there, or the Ironman Sport Facebook page as well. So thank you, gents. I hope you enjoy your retirement for Guy and for Neil and Cliff. You're obviously still in the thick of it with booking.
It's not far from it.
I'm still enjoying me teaching as much as ever. So when that's happening, I'll keep going.